This is the 1962 Singer 500A that arrived yesterday. And I just want to go over a couple of things with you if you're thinking of getting one of these. I can't stress enough that you're going to need the manual, and I will put the link for the manual from Singer in the information section again. What these machines do is they allow you to do several, I think there are 22 additional cams you can get. The machine originally comes with numbers 1 through 5. But so aside from those additional cams, it also does built-in stitches. Before you get to that point, because that's like the selling feature of the machine, oh wow, look what it can do, you have to start at the beginning, and it'll alleviate confusion later on. These two knobs are the two that you use to choose the stitch pattern. A, B, and C are concern the needle position, and the others make combinations of stitches. Now, two things that I've mentioned before that happen with this machine. A lot of times the top is missing, or the little pins for the faceplate are missing. This one arrived with the hinge popped out, and even though someone has told me that you can just push the pin up and get it back in place, the easiest way to put the faceplate back on is to actually take the top off. And there are two screws under the lid here, and the top easily removes, and then you can just fit the faceplate on. But what I want to talk about is once you get the manual, you want to oil the machine. And it's diagrammed in there where to oil, and I want to point out why. This machine, I think, it looks brand new to me, except for minor cosmetic wear on the bed. And when it arrived, I turned it over by hand, and there was a real, almost a grinding noise from the needle bar area. So I oiled it, and in one of the videos where I first plug it in, the noise isn't really there. I don't have it plugged in right now. I just want to tell you a couple of things. So I did the oiling, and I thought I had gotten all of the oiling spots, and the machine should have been running fine, and I couldn't get it to do a zigzag. And so I figured, okay, it was so inexpensive because they knew it was broken, and I'll have to research all the linkage and find out what's wrong. But then I went back to the manual and rechecked what I had oiled. And on this machine, there is a movable bracket that goes from the presser bar to the needle bar, and it involves the needle position and the flexibility of it, and obviously zigzag. Well, I had forgotten to oil the area on the presser bar, and as soon as that had one drop of oil, I had zigzag. So what I'm saying is, this is the top of the line Singer. It's complicated, but certainly shouldn't be intimidating. And the best thing to do is to read the manual. This will now do the combination stitches. I still have more basic maintenance to do in going over it, but I just wanted to do a video that if you're thinking of buying one of these, it's a knowledge investment. I'm going to do a video and show you how the knobs connect and why it matters how you use them. A machine of this type was something that confused my mother because she didn't have the manual. And she had actually figured out quite a bit of it, but not all of it, and so it became frustrating for her. So the best friend to this machine is a copy of the manual. Now, given that, even though my mother had one in the past, and I've had 3 or 4 of these, this is kind of an anomaly for me right now because I'm headed for hand crank embroidery, and all of a sudden I have an electric that, even though I love these machines, it's not going to accept a Bishop hand crank. It can't be treadled. It needs to be electric. So that is another consideration if you're thinking of getting one. You may have to do some minor adjusting or repairing, including looking for a top, looking for a faceplate. It is a rotary hook machine. So yesterday when I did the first plug-in, it's louder than it should be, and that was because I had not fully oiled it. So you have to think of this as more of, it's not like buying a car, but it's almost like a computer in a sense, because when you buy a computer, you have to know Windows 10 or Android or Linux. You have to know the programs that go into it. And it's a similar type of thinking before they went to digital sewing, where you need to know how things connect and why they do what they do. And once you get that down, you're not going to have a problem with this machine. Now, the other thing to consider, though, over here is a 237. And a 237 has a very simple choice of zigzag width. When you go to the widest zigzag on a 500A, which is the setting of 5, it's not going to be anywhere near the width of the newer machines. This makes a delicate, fine, refined type of sewing. It's highly engineered. It is a bunch of moving parts that work beautifully together when they're working correctly, and they make not really delicate sewing all the time. It's just that they never are an overstatement. You can't do big, bold, loud with this unless you change your thread color and do bright orange or bright pink or something like that. You're always going to get a refined looking stitch. It's a beautiful machine. So those are some main tips that you should know before investing in one, because there are a few around $100. There's a nice setup for $174 right now on eBay that looks to have everything with it. And what you should do if you're thinking of buying one is contact the seller and ask if they've run it through the stitches. If you don't want to learn how to fix it, you want the one you buy to be perfectly working when you buy it. Otherwise, it's just going to be frustrating. So this is a machine that you look before you leap, and which I didn't, because obviously I've had them before, and I tend to think, well, I can just fix it if it's broken. But it turned out to be the simplest thing that it usually ends up being, which is read the manual and oil the machine.